podcast this morning, like you said, and he was asking me. I was like, no, did not exist. I do want to talk about this. Paulo Costa was in the news. Harrington, show yourself. Point number 2, Paulo Costa explains what did him in the first round with Israel Adesanya and gave his reasoning as to why he would dominate a rematch. So I'm going to allow you to explain, but this just smells like sour grapes or excuses, maluses, whatever you want to call it. But go ahead, please.
Ironically, he was drinking sour grapes.
Ironically, he was.
Yeah, all right. Exactly that. Paulo Costa says that, he needed a sleep aid. He was on Fight Island. He got in there. His sleep was all messed up. He'd been awake for over 24 hours. He just needed to get some sleep. Started with a glass of wine, ended up, at a half bottle, then a full bottle. Essentially, in the quote here, he says that he was still a little drunk when he got into the cage there. I had a very different sensation. I don't think I told you about this, Tamara. I enter every fight very active, of course. I'm afraid of getting hit or knocked out, so I'm always paying close attention. For this fight, for the title, I was sleepy and not even a little worried about getting hit. I didn't feel anything. It was very strange. I had no hype in thinking I was going for the title. I was totally serene. I was so calm that it scared me. The loss happened, but if I had lost him being 100% healthy, then I would have lost. Then I would have been a lot more upset because someone would have defeated me for real. But since my loss happened under the circumstances I mentioned earlier, I'm going to fight Adesanya again. Fight him the right way.
I lost my title fight. Listen, you fucking lost. You got beat. You didn't show up. You didn't try and fight. You took a sleep aid. Yeah, you looked half asleep. He looked half asleep in that fight because he didn't do fuck all. Saying he was drunk in the octagon still, don't buy that. Why don't I buy that? Well, because they're in fucking Abu Dhabi and they're doing it on California time. So he didn't walk into the octagon until fucking 6 o'clock in the morning the day after. So unless he was getting pissed that day without going to sleep, that's highly unlikely. A bottle of wine? Fucking, I'll do 2 bottles of wine. I'll be drunk, but I'll still be okay the next day. Harrington, what?
Well, devil's advocate, I have before.
Drank a bottle of wine?
When I was a drinker, I have gotten so drunk the night before that I tried to sleep it off. I woke up the next day, still pretty hammered, having to go to my job as a Little League umpire.
Are you trying to tell me there is a phenomenon that exists that when you drink so much, you can still be tipsy in the morning? Are you explaining that to me? I had no idea.
It's Micheal Bisping's entire career.
42 years on this planet. I've woke up fucking rather tipsy, and it was always like this. How do you feel this morning? Well, I shouldn't have driven to work this morning, that's for sure. do you know what I mean? It's a classic. You go out, you have a heavy night, but you're still going to do a Saturday morning shift at the factory. It's like, oh fuck, I'm fucking hammered here. And a lot of people, they do get pulled for that. And I'm ashamed to say that maybe I've got behind the wheel before the night after a sleep. Listen, that does happen. I don't think a bottle of wine is enough to have that. And as I say, with the time difference, I do have a little bit of an issue believing that story.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's true or not true, a bottle of wine is not enough to be absolutely drunk or really affect you. Maybe a little bit of a headache the next day, a little bit of hungover, but not being full drunk. I remember one time I got drunk when it was like, the first time I got hammered, I was like 16, 17 years old, and we just drank, maybe a dozen drinks, like vodka sodas. I was just chugging them, and I was drunk for a full 24 hours. I woke up the next day, and I was still straight up drunk, but it was so many drinks, and I was such a young kid. I wasn't used to drinking. 1 bottle of wine for a guy as big as Paulo Costa, also the way he dresses, you assume that this guy knows how to drink.
The weight cut probably affected how much water he had in his body, though.
The weight cut would affect your ability to hold the alcohol. But listen, I've been here. I know this phenomenon. I've indulged with a couple of drinks the night before a fight.
Are you saying that you have been intoxicated?
I have been intoxicated before, and I have been intoxicated the night before a fight. You know what I'm saying? Not that I'm proud of that, For Paulo Costa, I've got to wonder how much of the pressure was a factor for him doing that. Do you know what I'm saying? It was the pressure getting to him a little bit. And in terms of, a bottle of wine, listen, it is enough. If you drink a bottle of wine and you don't drink enough, all jokes aside, that would be enough the next day to impact your performance in a negative way. Okay?
Right, especially at that level where you have extremely high-level athletes that are, going up against Israel Adesanya, who has, the reflexes of a cat. He's everyone's number 1 pound-for-pound guy right now. Without a doubt, you don't want to lose any edge. I'm just saying that this also might be something that Paulo Costa needs to do in order to get himself mentally, giving himself that excuse. Maybe he can, that's just sort of what gets him motivated, where he's going, you know what, I wasn't 100%. And if he needs to tell himself that, then fine. I'm not hating on it, but he should just keep it to himself. He shouldn't tell the media that. He should tell himself that.
Yeah, no. I think there's been a couple of excuses now, hasn't there, Harrington? I think there has been. I think this isn't the first excuse from Costa that we've had. There was something else at the time. The reality is he didn't show up in that fight, and he's trying to excuse it, and he's trying to come up with things and sleep aids and this and dick pills and bottles of wine and fucking silk shirts. And Harrington, what have you got? Oh, nothing. Okay. Don't make that face like you're about to say something. You were going to go. You were like...
I'm sorry. I'm pulling up an article. I didn't even know I was on camera. I'm sorry.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, no, listen, at the end of the day, he got beat and it was a bad loss. So he's pissed off, you know. And maybe he did have some wine as well, you know. But I as a human being, we do that, you know. And it's only natural as human beings, you know. You don't want to accept that you got your ass kicked. You don't want to accept that the guy is better. It's like... We were talking about this last week about Dominic Cruz when he lost to Henry Cejudo. You know, he came, you know, he blamed Keith Peterson and it was an early stoppage and the referee smelled of cigarettes and alcohol. And I get it. And now we've got Paulo Costa saying, well, I drank red wine the night before. Well, because what are the alternatives? The alternatives are admitting and saying to the world, I, as a professional fighter on my best form, went out there and got my ass kicked royally. You know what I mean? And that, you know, that's not good for him to accept that. His ego won't allow him to accept that. Maybe that is what happened, but I suspect it wasn't. And I understand, because as fighters, you're going to have ultimate confidence. So you're going to almost convince yourself that, no, I would beat him. If everything was perfect, I'd destroy that guy. But on this occasion, it wasn't for this reason.
And I think in any time you lose at anything, not even just in the fight game, in anything in the world, you can sort of go through the beats of what happened and figure out what you should have done differently. Everybody can step back. Hindsight is 20/20. So yeah, he probably shouldn't have drank the night before. It's not that I don't believe him that he didn't have a few drinks. I don't think he's lying about that. I think that he's convincing himself that that's the excuse, and he probably even believes it.
100%. I'm sure he does believe it. I'm sure that he did have... you know, a little bit of wine. Maybe he had a full fucking bottle. Who knows? Who cares? 2 glasses is half a bottle of wine, right? When I used to weigh in for my fights, when we'd all get together, all the team, all my friends and family that had flown in, all my team, and anyone else we knew that were in the area. Sometimes there'd be 30 people, which I had to pick up the fucking check for every time. They were very expensive dinners. But still, at those dinners, I would always have myself a shandy, which is a beer mixed with Sprite, lemonade, you know, half that. A good shandy on a hot day is fucking delightful. There's a lot of sugar, it's a lot of carbs. So I was like, oh, it's carbs, baby boy. I'm refueling. But it's
energy.
It's energy. I'm just fucking, this is fucking premium unleaded. What are you talking about?
It's healthy. It's actually a healthy choice right now. You need the carbs to burn for energy. You're going to burn that at an optimal, amount, and you're going to perform at your highest capacity.
Exactly. So listen, he's just trying to fight. Excuses. I said it before. Excuses, maluses. Finds your neck in nooses. What do you want, Harrington?
So I did look it up. He was blaming it on an undisclosed injury that he had suffered in training for the fight. He also did mention
he had a broken pussy.
Oh,
well, I mean,
after it's a good one though. I like it.
Thanks.
A bit disrespectful for the warriors, the samurais that suffer and sacrifice their own bodies for our entertainment. That level, a little bit disrespectful, but a good one.
He was disrespecting the audience by getting drunk on a bottle of wine the night before. I paid for that fight.
So was Jairzinho, Ronald Shug, and Cyril Gahn, but you sucked their dick before.
Well, I sucked Cyril Gahn's dick. That fucking big fat French cock.
Yeah. Who wants to fucking suck a loser's dick?
If I gotta choose one, I'm sucking Cyril Gahn's dick. Let's get real.
Hey. Anyway, whatever. I say he might let you. He's French. Anyway, go on. Before I get fired from the UFC for that one. Jesus Christ.
So he did mention the injury. He did mention the lack of sleep. He also said immediately in the post-fight presser after that he talked to his camp. He knew exactly what the problem was, and he wouldn't let it happen again. So that does lead me to believe that maybe he knew, hey, I got a little too drunk last night. The whole no sleeping thing happened to fly to Abu Dhabi for this fight. There was a lot of factors in Costa where this does line up.
Listen, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Harrington, but the reason being, and I know you were just going to further bolster his point, right? But at the end of the day, we as human beings, we're all in control of our own bodies, right? And nobody put a gun to his head and said to drink that wine. And if he's now blaming the loss on the fact that he drank wine, well, then that is his fault in his preparation. He didn't do everything he needed to do to win the fight. And that is nobody else's fault but his own. And it sounds like I'm being harsh. I'm not. That's the reality of the situation. As I said before, as fighters, we don't want to accept our shortcomings because it can be detrimental to our confidence going forward. But also, you got to be realistic. You can't just be in denial. You have to accept what went wrong. You have to be man enough to look yourself in the mirror, to look at the fight, watch it, break it down with your coaches and say, well, fuck, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I engage more? Why didn't I try and counter here? Why was my output so low? They're the questions that I should be asking, not putting things out there in the media saying I drank red wine. The reality is, the sport has moved on from that fight. That was back in when? August, September or something. It's moved on. Adesanya's fighting Blachowicz next month. Don't embarrass yourself further by making excuses. Say, you know what? I got beat by the champ, but guess what? I'm going nowhere. I'm going to win 2 more fights. I'm going to beat Robert Whittaker, and I'm going to get to do this again. I made mistakes last time, but when I get a rematch, I won't fuck up then.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, it's just a psychological thing. And if it helps him get through it and it helps him in his mental preparation for Robert Whittaker, and he goes, you know what, I'm going to be perfect this time. I know the mistakes I made last time. It's only a good thing, whatever, more power to him. If that's, we watch fucking Jan. He carries a piece of rope around that he puts around his wrist now because it's good luck. That's all just mumbo jumbo horse shit. It's not real. Good luck doesn't exist. Magic isn't real. But if it convinces him that is an edge, and if he puts that around his wrist and he trains with it, and in his head,
whoa,
this one believes in magic now.
No. I don't not believe in magic. I'm not so foolhardy. But Lewis, are you not the one on the first Monday of every month or whatever? You start the day by going rabbit, like a total fucking loser.
You should have seen when I told his family about all of his kids were so into rabbit. You should have seen how angry it made him. He was like, if somebody says fucking
the point I'm making is that you're talking shit and you're contradicting yourself. You're like, I don't do none of that. You do that rabbit, buddy.
I didn't say that I didn't do it. I said that magic doesn't really exist. But if you have a lucky hat and you believe that lucky hat brings you luck, you are going to perform at a different level. It's just psychological. It's a mental thing.
Placebo effect.
Yes. So that ultimately is what I break it down. So I think there's a mental psychological benefit for him to sort of get himself psyched up and to come up with those excuses. I don't look at them as excuses. I look at it as just sort of mental preparation. So I'm not hating on it, but let's just get real.
No, I'm not hating on it either, but there's a fine balance. You do need that to a certain degree, but also, as I said before, you got to be realistic. You got to look, because if he's going to fight, let's just say he was fighting Adesanya again, and he just sticks to his guns and said, no, it was the sleep aid, it was the wine, it was all that. Me, strategically, nothing to change. I was perfect. The same thing's going to happen. What he needs to do is, or anytime you lose, you have to sit down, you got to be honest with yourself and think, right, why did I lose and what can I do to prevent that from happening again? Of course, drinking red wine the night before would be an obvious one. But changing your strategy would also be another one, because standing there in the middle of the octagon and calling him on and being all cocky, but then not actually throwing anything and eating lots of calf kicks and leg kicks and all the rest of it, that is not how you win that fight. But still, we're not here to shit on Paulo Costa. I think he's a tremendous fighter and he's very, very exciting. And I can't wait for his fight with Robert Whittaker, which is going to be an absolute...